Good morning, everybody. I've named this morning's talk Exercising. Last week at an exercise class I try to attend as much as I'm able, called Senior Strength and Balance. I was doing the moves the teacher was telling us to move, and I glanced up at the large mirror. It's right behind the instructor and it right in front of us, reflecting all of us. And I felt this real wave of emotional uplift. It felt good to do the same bodily movements at the same time that everybody else in the room was doing it. Now, these movements are challenging to me, and it's not my preferred form of exercise, but I do it because I've been told I need it. I need to be strengthening, stretching these muscles. And so I looked in this mirror, and there was rows of us all earnestly doing the same movements at the same time. Now, I'd known for a long time that it's easier for me to exercise with others. It's easier, but I hadn't realized that it gave me a kind of emotional uplift quite like this. But it feels like a puzzle. This question I've been puzzling over came to mind. Why do I like being instructed in exercise so much? And why do I resist a similar process in meditation? I love being guided in exercise, and I resist being guided in meditation. What's that all about? I've been wondering this for years. But this particular day last week, when I was in that senior strength and balance class, a childhood memory flashed to my mind, and it was a memory of doing synchronized swimming. I really hadn't thought about this in a long time, but that I loved that when I was when I was a girl. I don't know about a little girl, whatever, 10-year-old girl. I used to take so much joy about swimming in sync with other girls. And I realized, this feels somewhat similar. Maybe that's part of the puzzle. There's an old childhood imprint of pleasure in moving with others in the same formation. But then it was quickly followed by another memory, my mom's ongoing encouragement in all kinds of ways for me to be a free thinker. Here's one example of how this came through. It was all the way back in 1973 when I sent my parents my coming out letter. Her response in part was that she could not accept my coming out if I was just conforming to my friends. I thought that was an odd response at the time, but very much her. I always knew she was a nonconformist. And by the way, that wasn't easy for me in 1950s suburbia. And then I realized more recently that my father was also perceived as a nonconformist when I read, that line that you have in the high school yearbooks that sort of describe you. And so he was described as class nonconformist. I never thought of him this way, but I guess I come by it fairly, this nonconformist streak. So what I'm picking up on this, I want to, refer it right back to Buddhism, is sankharas. This is a sankhara that I'm describing. This, this free thinker sankhara, shall we call it? Now, what are sankharas? Just in case you don't recall or know, they're described as, and I went back to the Wisdom Library, which I think is a reputable source of Buddhist things, and they describe it as formations, the forces or factors that fashion things, either physical or mental, anything formed or fashioned by conditions. And of course, this is a lot of what we're looking at in reflective meditation, how things are conditioned. Another definition I've heard of for sankharas, which I rather like, is karmic formations. And they do sometimes feel like they go way back, like they're ancient, that they're karmic. So back to this sankhara, which I will now call it, of enjoying doing movement with others. It works for me. It keeps me moving. In this senior strength and balance class, it helps me strengthen and stretch my various muscle groups, which, I don't have to think about it much. If I just do the things, I'll get all the body parts and get them in different ways. I don't have to work at it mentally. I could just be in my body. Um, Now, I can imagine how others would take a similar pleasure in guided meditation, that they will get what they need. You will get what you need from the instructions. It will take you where you need to go, and you don't really need to, well, think about it too much or get too in whatever. You can just do what you're told. So I got very excited when I saw the piece of something, this understanding that had been puzzling me for a long time because it really made no logical sense to be so kind of extreme. Like, don't guide me in meditation, but guide me in exercise. Guide me. I'll drive to the class. I want to be guided. And at first it seemed like, wow, I got the answer to the puzzle. But I knew quickly that this was only a piece of the puzzle. In other words, only one of the conditions or angles on what drove these sankharas, these habit patterns. And so quickly I wondered, what else? What else is there? And the word identification came to mind. I really am much more identified with what happens in my mind and heart, with what happens when I am still and curious in meditation. And this interest in my inner world, in my heart and mind, I've been studying this for decades. I made a career of it as a meditation teacher and a psychotherapist. This is really a big value of mine. And by the way, a value I grew up with. And I'm not that identified with how I move my body. Yes, I am very earnest in my commitment to keep my body in the best shape I can as I age. But I trust the authorities. They know more about what an aging body needs. Of course, when I do these exercises, I need to adapt some to fit the needs of this body. But still, in this case, I trust and want the authorities to guide me. But back to sankharas. I'm talking about a couple of helpful sankharas for me. It works for me to do reflective meditation. I love it. I teach it. So it works for me to just let my mind be free and go where it goes in meditation and reflect upon it. That works for me. And it works for me to, go to these exercise classes. Um, but not all sankharas are like this, just to remind you, we usually teach about the problematic ones. And of course, when we talk about those, we say, we can change some of that, but some of it we can't change. Some of these sankharas are so strong, so deep in us that we can't change them, but we change them by being with them with less reactivity, with more kindness. And then finally, I thought, I've forgotten about square dancing. I've been doing square dancing for decades. And even it started at my grammar school graduation, but that wasn't so great, actually. But at any rate, I've been always drawn to folk dancing, which is sort of a similar thing, like people moving together however they move. And then I thought about a tagline that often goes along with square dancing, which is friendship set to music. Isn't that lovely? So I wondered, could we consider reflective meditation friendship set to Dharma? Friendship with our inner life, friendship with one another as we meditate together, each in their own way. So I will end the talk there.